Hi, and welcome back to our Ask the Agronomist video series. I am Phil Long, Precision Agronomy Advisor with Latham High-Tech Seeds. We're getting a little excited to plant like everybody is out there. It's been a challenging spring, but we've still got time. We've still got time to get things in, especially the maturity groups we're running with. It's not an issue yet. As long as we can find some good conditions in the next week or two, we'll be fine. But I want to talk a little bit about tillage today. I ran the field cultivator here this morning. I've been kind of checking the soil the last few days and ran the field cultivator over this, and this is a good example. So today we're going to talk a little bit about tillage, running that tillage pass, and making sure that we're not hurting things or making things worse for that planter to go across the field. So the first thing we want to do is you can take a shovel out there before you run a tillage pass. Obviously, I've been doing that the last couple days. Just dig down deeper than your tillage pass is going. So dig down 5 or so inches and then see if you can ball that soil up at the bottom of that. That's your indicator. If it's sticking together pretty good, then you don't want to be doing that. The other thing you can see here, we've got some smearing and it's coming up in clods. That's obviously not a good indication either. You want it to be breaking apart and flowing easily. So the top part of this is really nice and fluffy. And actually, if you check behind me here where it's still bean stubble or no-till, that looks in really good condition, the top couple inches. But once we get down here to where our field cultivator's running, you can see I've got my Latham seed depth indicator here. It's kind of hard to tell, but I had it in there before I made a mess, and it was about 5.5 inches. So we're running plenty deep here. This is a situation where we could probably shallow that up a little bit. We're right on the edge of 2 fields here, so it's not the most even, but that's plenty deep for what we're trying to do. Just remember that as you're putting this in here, when we pull this soil back, and I just simply pulled this back with my hands, the loose soil after the field cultivator ran through is something you can do out in the field really quick. You see these undulations from the sweeps going across the field. Think about that as you're doing that tillage. If we're putting a compaction layer in here where it's too wet, you can see I can grab this and ball it up really easily at that depth it's running. You're putting these undulations in here, this uneven terrain, and you're doing it in an angle in the field, and then you bring the planter back and you're running over that. So you got to make sure that we're running deep enough that we're underneath those seed openers, that we're not causing issues with the downforce and so forth of our planter, because it can't keep up with that all the way across the field. So make sure that you're running at a depth underneath that where those seed openers are going to go, and make sure that it's fit to be running out there. Because if we're putting this layer of compaction in here, 75 to 80% of the compaction comes from that first pass. So once we put that layer in, if this is too wet, every time we run across this field, it's not going to get better, but it happens in that first pass, and that's going to stay there all season. So we're going to have to deal with that as things dry up. And if we plant corn in here, those roots can't get down through it in the first month or so. They're not getting water. They're staying up in this top where it's moist now, but then when it turns off dry, they're not through this layer of compaction. That's when we have issues and a severe yield impact later on. So just remember that when you're going out this spring, looking at tillage, seeing how deep you're running. Make sure you're running deep enough that you can get through it with the planter and not have issues with your downforce moving all over the place. So the other thing is, looking at this, like I mentioned, you're going to be moving, pushing down when we come across it with the planter. So making sure that those residue cleaners, row cleaners, and those are adjusted really well to just move residue, not soil. Because if we dig down and trench this, we're going to be back down into this harder layer, this compacted layer. Don't want to be compacting it, but we also don't want to be digging trenches because we end up being deeper than we need to. So looking at that, the other option that we could do out here, maybe shallowing up to stay in this not as heavy a soil, not as moist a soil, is no-tilling it. If you're set up for no-till, got floating row cleaners or something, that'd be a great option in this case. You could rock and roll at this point. Things are good in the top couple inches. They're just not great to be doing this field cultivating out here right now. It's pretty wet as I'm sitting here looking at it, just a little too wet to be out here today. So take note of your field conditions as you're running spring tillage this spring. If you have any questions, as always, please feel free to reach out to us at 1-877-GO-LATHAMS, or visit us on our website at lathamseeds.com. Good luck and be safe this spring, and thanks for watching this week's Ask the Agronomist.